Ecology studies the relationship between living organisms and their environments. As such, ecology as a scientific discipline is crucial for our understanding of the natural world, including the past, the present, and the future. Especially in times of increasing global environmental crises, such as biodiversity loss and climate change, ecology emerged from a niche discipline into the spotlight of global media attention. But what are the challenges ecology as a scientific discipline faces in the future? What are the most pressing questions ecologists need to answer? Professor Dr. Mark Westoby is among the most renowned ecologists and has experienced and shaped ecology for the last 50 years. Renowned for his innovative ecological strategy scheme, Mark was among the first to categorize plant species based on measurable traits, exploring trade-offs to influencing plant diversification and ecological strategies. Recently, Mark extended his research to ecological strategies in bacteria and archaea. Now working as Emeritus Professor at Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, Mark develops ideas and concepts to study and predict the future of global ecosystems.
Mark, before talking about the future, let us have a quick look at the past first. What do you think are the greatest changes in ecology since you started your career in the 1970s?
So I think probably the biggest change has been a big extension to wider scales, wider geographical scales especially. In the 60s and 70s, most reliable ecological knowledge was from a few plots on a rocky shore or maybe up a particular mountain range. And obviously we needed to extend so that we were covering the whole range of species and to be able to generalize about different places. So partly it's because it's something we needed to do, but also it's because the technologies have become available. We have satellite imagery, we have digital surfaces for climates and to some extent for soils. So it's been made possible. And there's been some extension of scale to try to cover more species as well, something that I've been particularly involved in. But I think that move to try to cover larger areas and more species is the big trend.
Mm. So given all that, where do you think ecology as a discipline is heading to in the future?
For me, it's the science of situations where you have population dynamics happening, you have interactions between populations, you have transactions of energy and nutrients. And where I think it ought to head in the future is to become much more a first principle science, where we can take a given physical setting, the soil, rainfall, a fire regime, a level of upwelling if you're in the water, and we really understand the rules for what sort of ecosystem you can get under those circumstances, or what alternative sorts. That's the shape I think a good discipline of ecology should take. And I think that'll be valuable as well as more intellectually satisfying. I'm particularly interested at the moment in what ecosystems will be like under different circumstances in the future, 50 to 100 years in the future, different environments, different technologies, a lot of differences.
Mm-hmm. So also along those lines, crises are around us. Climate change, for instance, is putting immense pressure on our natural ecosystems. So what do you think also in ecology are the most pressing and immediate questions ecologists need to answer?
It's true that ecology deals with environmental crises, but it also deals with environmental opportunities. There are lots of crises. You listed some of them, global change and so forth. Global change is changing lots of things. And It will cause lots of human problems, no doubt, and it will probably cause us to lose species, which I think is a great pity, because species are their heritage, actually. They, a typical species has maybe 1 million years of history separate from its nearest sister species. And 1 million years of history is a lot of heritage. It's like 200 times longer than the Egyptian pyramids and 20 times longer than a human culture in Australia. So losing that would be a great pity, but that's digression, sorry. The thing about global change is it's certainly going to cause lots of problems for humanity, and we may lose some species. But it's also a very big, very powerful experiment. It's kind of moving things around in ecosystems. It's like a large hadron collider for ecology. And that we ought to be able to learn from that about the rules for the construction of ecosystems more powerfully than just by observing ecosystems as they currently are.
So a lot of opportunities also in global change and everything that it brings with it. So also given all the opportunities, what do you think, or what would your personal advice be for early career researchers interested in studying ecology?
So the first piece of advice, I suppose, is that ecology is really fun and challenging. It's very complicated. There are a lot of things happening in ecosystems, and the most constructive way to simplify or summarize those for a given project is a real intellectual challenge. So it's really worth it if you have the intellect. I think my more practical advice would be, well, go and talk to researchers you find interesting. Ask them what they think is most interesting, what will be most interesting in 3 or 4 years. And don't just listen to them, debate it with them. Work out your own ideas in discussion with them. So that's one thing. And keep a list of things that you think would be worth working on should the opportunity arise. Of course, the opportunity won't ever arise for some of them, but you never know with others. And anyway, the exercise of trying to work out what you think would be really worthwhile research projects is a very important part of life. Beyond that, I don't think I would generalize very easily. Researchers can be good in a lot of different ways. I wouldn't say all researchers are different, but there are a lot of different ways to be a good researcher. And I wouldn't to really give useful advice to someone, I would have to get to know them more and listen to what motivated them and things like that.
Yeah. Mark, you can look back at a very long and highly successful research career. And you're as research active as ever. Can you share with us what keeps you motivated, still going?
I think the same thing as it always has been. The thing about science is, if you advance science even a little bit, you are leaving something behind you. As if, a piece of music or a painting. But better, actually, than an artwork, because it has truth. Science is a process where it's not just what you think or your opinion. You have to develop your own opinions, but then, other people will argue that and will test it with data of their own and things like that. So it doesn't become scientific knowledge until it has been through this social process of debate and testing. And so I think research in that sense of a social advance of knowledge by cross-checking is characteristically human. It's one of the most human and one of the most satisfying things you can do.
Mark, in your long and amazing research career, you undoubtedly also had a lot of amazing research experiences, for instance, in the Australian outback or in America or wherever. Can you share one very memorable moment with us?
Look, the one I'd pick is I suppose, not terribly exciting. It was a field site, a place where we were camping, near Uluru Katajuta, the rocks in central Australia, but not, we were 20 kilometres or so away from the rocks and from the tourism and human habitation. And it was a nice place, sand dunes, and we had a nice tree to camp under. And we were there in a ute, so we had folding chairs and cold drinks in the refrigerator. And that country, when you come to the end of the day and the angle of the light is low, it glows, actually. The red earth glows, the hanging down blue-green leaves glow. The triodia, I should have explained, we were there to work on seed production by triodias, they're called hummock grass, which makes sort of blue-green hemispheres, all over much of the inland. So those grasses become kind of backlit. So it's just really beautiful and peaceful. And I was there with my beloved, so I remember it well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mark.
Cool.
Thanks.